So today we're going to talk about, ideally, how do I create a journey for a volunteer, right? Because a lot of volunteers come to us just one-time volunteer and then sort of leave. And one and done is never a good sort of long-term relationship, right? Even in life. So you really want to create these journeys for volunteers, and the more intentional you are of creating them, the more value you get out of your volunteer. Yes, everyone agrees with you, right? And so imagine, because think of cost of acquisition, right? If you ever read Swiggy, this, that, Uber, all have cost of acquisition of a consumer. What is it? Customer, right? Right? So your cost of acquisition of a volunteer is the same. But imagine if that volunteer, rather than giving you 1 hour, could give you 100 hours. But that doesn't happen automatically. Because you really want to create a space where you're making the same effort, but that effort needs to be greater than the amount of value your volunteer gives back to your cause, community. Yeah, right. Correct. Yeah, exactly why he made the PPT, right? So you want your effort to be a lot less and your value to be greater. Yes, got it? Yeah? And we've done this for the last 15 years, I think, ish, and we've seen incredible results from it. So we want to share you some of the lessons we've learned along the way. Akshay was a young, strapping lad of all of, I think, maybe about, he was 16 or 17 when he first started tutoring kids at UNI. And then eventually, and that was 2.5 hours a week, right? So he met some friends at his engineering college, SRM in Chennai. And then they said, hey, come teach at UNI. So he came, taught at UNI, did it for a year, really liked it. Then eventually, from 2.5 hours a week, started giving us then, next week went to be a volunteer leader. So then would give us 5 to 10 hours a week. So then from 10 hours a week, he then went to handle the entire chapter of Chennai, went to sort of, a lot longer than 10 hours a week. It takes probably half your time, but still a volunteer. And today, then he obviously came and worked at UNI, managing hundreds of volunteers, and today leads pretty much the entire teach movement that you have. So he gives, I don't want to tell you how many hours a week he works, because then that'll get me in trouble and they're recording the session, but he works a lot, right? Right? But he manages pretty much 4,000 volunteers today across India. Same guy, same cost of acquisition, but we had a volunteer journey, right? And he's taken those steps, which not just him, but lots of people have. Today, about 60% of UNI's full-time staff have taken that journey, have taken that volunteer journey, and now work as full-time staff. So it's a great pipeline. So hiring for us is fairly easy, because you've got a ready base of 4,000 volunteers who become 500 leaders, who then become 100 chapter leaders, who then are like, hey, this would be a great place to work at. Make sense? Yeah, and you can do the same with your with whether it's corporate employees also, right? They're already employees. They're not going to eventually work for you, but they can give you more than that 1 hour. But if you're intentional of building that pipeline, right? So we have a simple 4-stage model, right? This is when you take picture of it or write it down or whatever it is, or just inscribe it into your hands. Whichever works. So your first stage really is you've got people who are potentials. These are potential volunteers out there in the universe. So if you're a corporate, they're all of your employees. If you're a NGO, it's the whole universe, right? I mean, whoever your potential. Your first stage obviously is, can I move them from a potential to a one-time, right? Then your second stage is, can I move them from one-time to coming back more than once, right? And for some of our organization, the jump is from here to here, but you still will use the same concept, right? And then from recurring, you're then saying, hey, can I pull them more into the black hole? Yes, and they can see the light and eventually become what we call champion volunteers, right? And these are your long-term volunteers, etc. They could eventually come work at you, join your CSR team, whatever the right one is, right? So how do we get someone to take this journey, to enjoy it without feeling burnt out, and really enjoy, and really make this meaningful for them also? Right? Because a lot of times you get stuck in this entire endless loop of, I recruited, they came, did something, they left. Now I'm going to another place and finding more volunteers, recruiting them, and they leave. Right? So you can think of this almost, you would have seen this as a pyramid, high number here, lower numbers also. Great. Okay, so that's quickly the model. And to show you how to take the journey, I'm going to ask Satish. your icing of the cake is over. Welcome the cake, right? Okay, so everyone say hi, Satish.
Check. Yeah. Okay, so let me just go back. How many of you struggle with this, the endless loop? You're trying to recruit volunteers and then they come, probably do a little bit and then leave? Yeah? How many of you have champions? Okay, some of us. More than 10? More than 50? More than 100? Okay, more than 100, nobody. Okay, good. So there's a way you can grow this, right? Like UNI has about 600 champions every single year, right? And we actually get about 900 applications to become champions, and then we pick about 600 from them. So there's a way we can grow this, and we will kind of go in really down the rabbit hole. So if you really want to move people from one stage to the other, there is something strategic you'll have to do between those two stages. Yeah, and we'll quickly run through those 3 stages, and that's where we would like you to sort of really apply your sort of knowledge and also think through what is applicable to you, how would you do it, right? And we'll also create some space for you to sort of chat with each other. Now, I think probably in the introduction you heard, apart from running UNI, Ajit and I also, for the last 20 years or so, have done a lot of consulting and leadership development for the companies, right? And one such company is Toyota, right? And we've helped Toyota sort of launch a lot of their high-end cars in India. And when we did consulting with them, Toyota as a company is a Japanese company, if you know that. As you get into a strategic meeting, they have this phrase. They say, hey, what is the thinking way here? Right? If you're going to do this, if you're going to do this project, do this launch or do this activity, what is the thinking way? Right? So what we want to do is not just tell you, hey, these are a bunch of things you should do to move people, but to sort of give you a thinking way. Right? Because that's better. The thinking way is nothing but it's a mental model. It's a framework to kind of think about. Right? So that you're able to sort of build on top of it. Right? It's a bit of the why behind the how. Okay? So first thing, if you want to kind of move people from potential to one time, the thinking hat you have to wear is a bit of marketing. Yeah? You have to say, hey, there are a lot of these people who are potential volunteers, but how can I market the opportunities to them in a way where they get excited, right? So that's what you're trying to do here, right? How do we make volunteering attractive, right? Now, every other product in the world, every other brand in the world is doing the same thing. They're trying to market their product, right? And I want to kind of get you to think about volunteering as your product. Think of that's the Pepsi or the Coke you're selling, right? This is the product and you're saying, hey, you should taste this. This is brilliant, right? And I want to give you the framework that every person who does marketing uses. If you've gone to MBA college, you probably have come across this. 5 levels of human needs, right? How many of you come across this before? I'm sure quite a few, right? If you've done psychology, marketing, anything, this is a Bible for anybody who is doing marketing, right? And for the ones who have not seen before, very quickly, they say, these are the 5 levels of the needs we have as humans, right? So anybody who is marketing any product is saying, okay, what need do I cater to here, right? So any product you take, they're going to pick a level and say, okay, this is what we want to hit. Or this is what we want to hit, right? So the basic level is your physiological needs, which is roti, kapda, makan. For this generation, that is pizza, Starbucks, and Wi-Fi, right? So, and then you've got once you make little money, that your basic things are taken care, you're thinking about your security, right? The insurance, buying a house, right? The how do I secure my future, right? And then you've got your sense of belonging. I want to belong to a place. Right, that's my need. And then there is, I want to achieve something in life, right? Status, some value, right? And then the ultimate one, which is, hey, where is the purpose, meaning? I want to feel fulfilled, right? And by and large, we know that a lot of times we speak this language because the kind of work we do kind of hits this, right? But it's good for you to understand this frame, right? Now, companies which are doing the first two, you probably have seen ads like this, right? Mutual funds are here, right? Sense of belonging, there are brands that go behind that need, right? Everybody wants to belong to a group, right? That sense of belonging, right? Coke is very large on this. They, a lot of their things you see celebration, people hanging out together, having fun. So they really, Coffee Day does the same thing, right? Apple does this really well, right? For the last 20 years, they have said, hey, if you use Apple, you're special, right? And a lot of us have fallen for that. We buy our Apple phones, we feel we are special. Some of us even start dressing up like Steve Jobs, right? So, and it worked. It worked for 20 years, right? You're saying, hey, if you use Apple, you're different than the regular, right? So they're really hitting that need for me to feel that I'm special, right? And then Nike does the first one really well. They're very aspirational brand, right? You probably remember this ad, right? Find your greatness. They really sort of work with you to figure out, hey, how can you find your greatness? So this is how different brands do it, right? So you got to think of, when you think about volunteering, right? If volunteering is your product, you're obviously not hitting the bottom two, right? Nobody's volunteering with you because of their basic needs, right? That's obviously met somewhere else through work, our parents. So these are the three that you need to think in terms of, right? You got to think in terms of, how do I make volunteering attractive enough where I see, hey, my needs are met here, I want to do this, right? And you're competing with any other brand in the world to sort of capture that imagination, right? And how do you do that well, right? There's just a couple of posters here. You look at the last one, right? Is just the fulfillment, right? Hey, I'm a teacher, I'm a role model, I'm hitting that fulfillment, that purpose and meaning, right? When you look at this poster, it's positioned slightly differently. That, hey, we are a community of do-gooders, right? Where I get to hang out with the like-minded people, right? And together we get to do this, right? And you can pick, based on your audience, you can pick what language you want to speak to, what needs you want to cater to. So how do you market, right? That's the question. If you want to convert potential to one time, you got to figure out how to market, right? So do you want to do the break here?
I think maybe let's ask a question first, is how do you currently market? Because now you saw the answer, right? How I should be marketing. But think of currently what email you're sending out to saying, please come and volunteer, and see how many of those boxes are they ticking. How much of it is aspirational? How much of it is currently today saying community? Because normally we say, hey, children, please come teach. And we assume they will find all of it in it. Right? Okay? So Satish is going to share with you some of the things we do, and then we'll talk about which ones what you feel we can do. Right?
Okay, but are you able to relate to? Does anyone want to share what does your material look like? How do you reach out to your potential volunteers? Any examples? Yeah.
Dolly's there, yeah.
Yeah, I'll come back to you, Dolly. Through?
So we work on the Himalayas. So
Nice.
we have these signboards which we have through the entire trail, and we
Okay.
have more wall murals so people like it.
Brilliant.
And they search for us.
So which out of the three? Is it purpose? Is it community? What do you think?
What does your signpost say?
Community.
Community, is it? Very nice. Right? And such a great place to market your product, right? So lucky.
We understood our volunteer user profile, and a lot of them are new to Delhi, and a lot of them are students. So they look
Very
for
nice.
friends, like making friends, or a sense of
Absolutely.
community from the
Absolutely.
Maslow's hierarchy. And the other thing that we did, we understood that they really like the relationship that they share with the beneficiary. It can be a dada dadi or it can be a child. So wahan se wo fulfillment, matlab, these both things are working.
Brilliant.
For us. Yeah.
Brilliant. Love that. Great example, right? And the fact that you analyzed who your audience are and that they're new to Delhi and they're looking for that community to become part of, to be able to do that. Great. Go for it.
Hi again. We met
Yeah.
last time
Yeah,
at
of course.
Evolve.
Of course, I remember.
So we're from Manipur. There we have different, like we tried so earlier I used to volunteer in big cities, but I tried that model, didn't really work out. What worked out for us is a sense of fulfillment,
Very good.
a lot of emotional attachment, and community, of course, and growth, as in like they kind of get a sense of exposure to how things go about in a team, how they can use skills, 21st century skills, to volunteer, to not
Nice.
just like do one-time events. So that's what really brings volunteers to us.
Very cool.
Hi, I have a question actually, not so much of what we do. There's a bit of a dichotomy, right? Because you say recurring volunteer, and of course there's great value in that, but what is the sense in one-time volunteering? I mean, I don't understand what the negative there is, because at one hand you're also talking about building culture, right? So you get a larger population, and I don't know if there's a math or data somewhere saying what percentage comes back. Maybe let me articulate this a bit better. Are you saying one-time volunteering is not something to aim for at all?
Totally not.
Okay.
Right? Obviously, it depends on your activity.
Not just mine, I'm saying
Right?
in general, right?
Yeah. So there's nothing wrong. This is not a case against one-time versus recurring, right? Maybe there are projects where one-time makes total sense, but does it make business case, right? If I'm going to say, for example, I'm trying to recruit you, and there is X amount of effort gone in kind of getting in touch with you, whichever way I've been able to attract you, and then you eventually just do one-time volunteering, which is about 2 hours, right? Is there a good business case for it? If there are enough people have come back, then you're doing something right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think when we look at volunteering, we think of it like a funnel, right? So I know one time sits on the top, but I want to have something which then I can move the one time to do more, to do more, to do more, right? Because then that same person entering the funnel, we're getting a lot more volunteering hours and input from them out of that. That's all, right? So we understand one time is part of the ecosystem, right? So it's not like we're not saying bad to good. You will have a funnel where only some will become champions. Not everyone's going to become your champion, right? So I think that's reality also.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it, right? Because like the more we can get out of a volunteer, I think for all of us, more people volunteering and more out of every volunteer.
Yeah. And there may be projects where only one time makes sense, right? So it's definitely not this versus that. But if you want to grow your volunteers, this is a journey, right? Okay. So very quickly, I think we're losing time. So very quickly, some of the things you should do if you're thinking marketing. How do I reach out to my potential? How do I reach out to my potential and convert them into one-time or recurring, right? You want to create excitement. You want to create buzz, right? And we talked about what are the needs. You want to make it exciting. You want to make it fun. You want to make it social, as we've heard a couple of people talk about. And you obviously want to talk about impact, which I think all of us do, right? That's one area we do a decent job. But there are other angles. I think that's what you got to kind of think about, right? Use social proofing and storytelling, how you do your marketing material. Social proofing is when you're able to present other volunteers who've gone through the journey, right? Put their work out there that inspires others, right? And storytelling, I'm sure you're all good at. I think if you're a part of a corporate, using your existing structures works really well, right? What are the other departments which are doing stuff, right? And how can I sort of piggyback with them? How can we sort of package it better? I think when you get managers excited, business line managers, I think that it works really well, right? A lot of corporates today do it not just because it's volunteering, because it's a great activity for them to do as a team. Right? When the whole team comes and does an activity, right, there's a huge value for them, right? So use that. I think one thing, if it's the first time people are volunteering, you want to keep a low entry bar, right? Give them something easy to try, taste. Then once they get the taste of it, you're able to sort of right, increase the intensity. The other thing you can do, especially for a corporate, is how do you gamify it, right? Create levels and stuff where people can get involved. Gives them the sense of achievement, right? That fourth level, right? And the comms is very important with the first time volunteers, multiple reminders, like ask for feedback once they come and volunteer. So doing comms really well will really help you sort of convert a lot of these, yeah? So these are some of the things. Anything you want to do before we, okay, cool. So let's move to the next level, right? So, and I think this part we're all pretty good at, right? And I think we all have our ways of doing it. So you want to move more people from one time to how do I do recurring, where they want to come back again and again, right? And I think the hat you want to wear here is what we call community building. Right? I think it's a real buzzword today. Like a lot of corporates are now hiring community building manager, right? Like 5 years ago, it was a social media manager, which was a newly created position that was going crazy. Now it's a community building manager, right? So somebody who says, okay, how do I create community with these bunch of volunteers who are coming to us again and again, right? Because it's because of that they come back. That's one of the reasons why they come back. One of the things we tell our leaders is, hey, people may come for the cause, but they'll stay for the community, right? So think of it like a bit like going to the gym. If you go to gym alone, how long will you survive? But if you go with a friend, or if you make friends, the chances are that you'll survive longer going to the gym, right? Otherwise, Jan 3rd, you check out. Right? So how do we create that community, right? Does anyone know which company is like the best company when it comes to creating customer experiences? Any guesses? Sorry? Airbnb is hostel, okay. No, which hostel you stayed in, but yeah, I would want to ask you for that. Which company, like, think of big companies, right? Which company is known? Like, this company's customer service is legendary. It's known for it. Tom Shoes, okay? Such a social cause, yeah. Red Bull, somebody said Red Bull. You need one right now because I'm putting you to sleep, or? Nike with the Runners Club, very good example. Okay, by research or by statistics, the best company in the world when it comes to customer service is Disney. Disney, yeah? Because it's every child's, like you go to Western worlds, every child's dream is to go to Disney World, right? They're so good at it because they put so much science behind. Like you go to Disney World, it's a very scientific place. What you hear, what you smell, what you see, everything has been researched to like crazy levels. But they're so good at it that they run an institute where all the other companies come and learn how to create customer experience, right? That's because the guy who obviously created Disney, Walt Disney, said this, right? And that is that's the ethos of their company, and that is why they're so good at it, right? Do what you do so well that they will want to come back and bring their friends too. If you're able to sort of just integrate this thinking in your process, you'll go a long way. Because this is so important for volunteering. Do what you're doing so well that they would want to come back and bring their friends too. Yeah? Okay, so Starbucks, right? Heard of Starbucks, I'm sure, right? Now, Starbucks, maybe about, I don't know, maybe I'm talking about 25 years ago, didn't sell coffee. Did you know that? They only sold coffee beans, I think, right? But the CEO had this inspiration when he was visiting, he was on a holiday in Italy, and then he noticed something very special, right? And he came back and said, hey, I want to do this. And he transformed the whole company. This is what he noticed. He noticed that all Italians left home to go to college or work, but on the way they stopped and hung out in a cafe, right? After work, they would stop, hang out in a cafe. Culturally, that was just the done thing. So he came up with this thing. Hey, home is the first place. Work is the second place. There's a cafe where they go like hanging out because their friends come there and, you know, that sense of community there. That is their third place. So he said, I want to create third place for every person on earth. And Starbucks was born. Yeah? Now, if you really want to deeply understand volunteering, this is your slide. Look around the room. Is this your competition in the room? Yes? No? Why? They're all trying to do exactly what you're trying to do. Get volunteers. Oh! Taking my volunteer already. Woo! Absolutely. Your competition is out there. The toy you're planning to go this evening is your competition. Yeah? Netflix is your competition. Right? Coffee Day is your competition, right? Starbucks is your because they understand this ethos. They're all trying to be the third place. I leave college, go home or go, but in between I stop at one of these places. So you really deeply have to integrate this into your thinking that you're creating a third place for a person. If you're not able to kind of get your processes to think like this, you will be in that endless loop of first-time volunteers. Okay, that's why, now you said, why the heck do I need community building and all? This is the reason. You cannot build third place without building a community where people like to come, hang out, and do things together, right? So that's what community building is all about, right? Do you want to ask anything now? Okay, so very quickly, I'll share a few things, but then maybe we can break them out a little bit, and then... Oh, really? Wow, okay. So how do you sort of create that community sense, right? Like you look at these posters, we actually speak this. Say, dude, come, this is your place. You'll find your tribe to hang out, okay? So how do you create spaces for connection, right? How do you bake that into your thinking? Like we run an after-school program, right? So we say, hey, you need to, if you want to volunteer, you need to give every week 2 hours for the class, right? But we don't ask them for 2 hours. We ask them for 2.5 hours. We say there's 2 hours of class and half an hour of debrief. Because we know how important that debrief is, where they'll connect with each other, they'll make friends, they'll talk about what worked, what didn't work, they're able to empathize with each other, with the struggles of teaching a child who doesn't want to listen to them, right? WhatsApp groups or whatever else works for you, right? If you're a corporate, there's a Slack group, Slack channel, right? Spaces for co-creation, right? You have to create space where they're able to say, hey, this is my idea, this is my 2 bits. How many of you heard of IKEA effect? Nobody has heard of IKEA effect? They say the reason IKEA just blew up and is the biggest like furnituring company in the world is because they don't assemble everything and give it to you. Yeah? They do half the job and give it to you, right? You have to assemble it yourself. But there's enough research to show that when I assemble it myself, I fall in love with it a little extra. It's very well researched. They're making billions based on that principle, right? And you have to integrate that. No matter how amazing your strategy is, if you just come and say, do this, they're not going to feel the same way. But you create a space and say, okay, let's come together. Let's discuss how to do it. Then there is a power in it. They'll be so much more passionate to come back week after week and try and succeed in it, right? Create a habit loop, right? That's what we do with debriefs, right? That's a habit loop. I know that after every class, we're going to meet and we're going to connect and we're going to have chai after that, right? Highlight the progress, impact. I think I'm sure you all do that. Ask them to bring their friends and family too. Because I like hanging out with certain kind of people, right? And they're also there, it becomes easier, right? That's the best way to grow your network. Keep going. Okay, now, first-time volunteers, you've been able to sort of convert them to come back again. You become their third place, right? But managing the third place requires certain amount of effort, right? And you want to build champions who are able to do this for you, right? Run those communities, do the community building part, right? And it's good to think leadership here and then say, how do I create space for people to sort of have sort of a journey, right? Where I'm already doing this, what more can I do? Give them that line of sight, right? I'll probably skip a couple of slides here. But a couple of things you can do is, till here you're creating a space for people to connect with the champions or potential champions you want to connect personally. You want to spend time. You've got to invest personally. You've got to invest time in them, right? And have these kind of conversations slightly deeper, right? They really need to believe in your theology, your ideology, and then say, come on, let's do this together, right? Yeah. The other thing is, by this point, right, they start identifying themselves as a volunteer. And you want to cement that as their identity. Right? Now, we all have certain identities, apart from the main ones of being a techie or a father or a mother or a brother, right? Like, for example, Ajit is a fitness freak, right? He's done his Ironman. It's part of his identity, right? So you want to make volunteering part of their identity. So how do you do that? How do you integrate that into everything you do? Get them to embrace. That's very important. Make it big part of their life, right? Create a leadership pathway and say, hey, you're doing this, you could be doing this, and you could be doing this, right? And I really see the potential in you to lead, right? And how do I sort of take them there, right? Get them involved in planning, strategy, decision-making, very, very close to co-creation, but just at a program level, yeah? And create spaces for that, right? Create spaces where they as leaders can come together and hang out with other leaders, right? So it hits all those three levels, right? There's a social space to hang out with people who committed to do more. There's also status, esteem there, right? Okay, these are all leaders, right? And then fulfillment, obviously, right? Identify their personal strengths and develop them, right? Give them space. Okay, you're really good with people. Can you handle community development, right? You're really good with data. Can you manage the database, right? Whatever that is. And give them visibility, right? Create visibility for them, right? And once they own that, they will stay with you. So I'll stay on this slide. Over to Ajit.
Love it. Okay, so you've got 15 years of life lessons in one slide, right? We've tried, tested, failed, seen this work in millions of organizations beyond just you and I. So what I want you to is turn to your buddy next to you and say hi. And I want you to think of one thing that you can go back and implement at your organization Okay, one insight and one question if you have. Okay, so turn to your neighbor, say hi, and I'm assuming all of us are in the volunteering space. So one takeaway, something that you can take away, and something that you potentially would like to apply also. Okay, quickly discuss with your neighbor, with your whoever's next to you, and if you have any questions, feel free to. If anyone has a question also, now's a good time to ask. Or keep chatting, one of the two.
So we have a mentoring program, and we started with like a mentor can become a super mentor and support other mentors, and then can become a super mentor coach also. But after that, then we started thinking like, can they take our roles also?
Yeah,
And
of
like
course.
it can become like a completely volunteer driven, zero budget organization. So have you guys thought about that? Like how
No.
much?
Yeah, personally, I have
But
not
yeah,
thought of because
you're-
I don't want to lose my job. I think it depends on how big you want to grow, right? Because if it's completely volunteer driven, it's going to have its limitations. Because unless you're asking them to do 40 hours a week, right? So if it's a small program and you're looking at small number of people, of course you can. You know, there are a lot of good models out there where it can be completely volunteer driven. But if you're trying to scale the program, it can't be volunteer driven. You will need to have certain amount of full-time staff to do some amount of grunt work. So
Just to follow up, like what is the biggest difference between like a full-time employee can drive and a volunteer, even the most committed one, cannot drive?
So small programs you can run, but big programs, it's too complex to run bigger programs. And also as you get bigger, you need a lot of specialists to run things, right? So like what my media head does, I can't expect a volunteer to do that. Like there's so much thinking goes into it, so much of strategy, right? So the skills also become very niche, right? So it's not generic anymore. Right, so I think if you want to scale, then I would not recommend that, hey, we go completely, because it has a lot of limitations of, you need somebody to do, I'm sure you work 70 hours, or if not 40, right? So, yeah.
I think Vivek, I'd say two things there. One is like if you take Robin Hood army types, they have scale, right? And they have scale and thing, but they do 2-3 things, right? And whichever model you pick, there will be life issues, right? If you ask them to show, hey, give me your data for the teaching program you do, they'll struggle, right? And because the second piece is, when we look at volunteering, I look at it as not a one-stop, one-fit, it will solve all of our life problems, right? Each of these pieces of volunteering can solve a different problem in the ecosystem, right? One-time volunteering can solve something, your leadership can solve something, all of that. So it's about matching your product in some sense to your solution, right? One-time volunteering in a teaching space doesn't work. Recurring does, right? But one time for a cleaning may work, right? Like what Hafiz does with, I would need 25,000 volunteers to clean in one day. Yeah, you're not going to get them to come every week and do it. Yeah. So think of it as a product and figure out what problem, and it should match your problem, right? Or should solve your problem.
But Hafiz also, if he had this pipeline, which I'm sure he does,
yeah.
then otherwise how are you managing this 25,000 volunteers, right? Even if 25,000 is showing up, you need some champions to be able to create a great experience. Unless you create a great experience, nobody's coming back, right? They would want to go, tell other people also and say, hey, go to office. And that's the reputation he's built, right? And because of the experience he's creating. And that's because of the structures he's been able to create with the help of volunteers.
Next question.
Yeah,
Dolly's got one.
Dolly was first, so I'll come to you.
I just want to know your percentage conversion from a first-time volunteer to a champion. Like, what's the ballpark figure? Just to give you an idea. Our retention right now, the goal retention is 30%. So any volunteer who comes for one-time volunteering events, the minimum 3 events, is considered a retained volunteer in a month. Out of those 30%, the retained volunteers, my goal is 15% should be my core volunteer or champion in your case. These are my numbers, but I want to understand. You guys have been in the game for a really long time. I just want to understand your ballpark figures.
Nice. I think those are really good percentages. Firstly, I think you should be able to hit those percentages. We don't do first-time volunteering. You want to volunteer is only recurring, right? I do not have time to be able to invest so much in you if you're coming only for 2 hours, just because of the kind of program we have, right? So we take in about roughly 3,000 volunteers every year, fresh batch, right? And then, which is recurring, right? And out of 3,000, about 900 apply to be champions. And we take about 500 of them, right? And then from that 500, about 100 go on to do like one level above as well, which are called chapter leaders. They're handling cities. And then from about that, then we've got fellowship, which you're like saying, okay, I want to do this full time. I think this is also an answer to you. I want to do this full time. Then you say, okay, give up 2 years of your life and you can come and do this. So they full time doing and they're getting paid for it. So that's fellowship, right? And out of that 100, I'm taking about 10, right? So those are the person. And then out of that 10, they finish 2 years and some of them say, hey, I want to do this for much longer now. So they become full-time staff. So that's our pipeline, yeah? Yeah, I think you wanted to ask something.
So I want to ask, at what stage do you show them the journey of a volunteer? Like, is it at the induction level or is it a little later?
To a volunteer?
Yeah, to a volunteer.
I would not even show this journey to a volunteer, right? I get volunteer to experience it. For a new volunteer, I'm not going to say, hey, you're starting here, you can go here, right? For me, it's like I'm on a first date, I'm saying, will you marry me, right? Like, it's like, freak the hell out of them, right? But they experience it from day one, right? As you become a volunteer, they're seeing what your leader is doing. So it becomes an aspiration for me saying, okay, I want to be like my leader, right? And there's a very structured growth there. Like for us, a person goes from being a volunteer to being an emerging leader, right? So if you're a volunteer and you say, I want to do this, say, okay, I'll give you one project, let's see how you do it, before I can say, yeah, you can be a leader. So there are 3 months of sort of courtship happens there, right? And our ratios are like that. We think in small groups. For every 10 volunteers, we have one leader overseeing them. But that's because of the depth of our program is very, like, it's one-on-one mentoring, and there's lots of deep stuff to learn. So that one leader would mentor about 2-3 volunteers. And they'll have a lot of one-on-one conversations saying, hey, you're good, why don't you apply for emerging leadership? So that's how that works. Yeah. Yeah.
We run 3 literacy centers in Prayagraj, where we deliver the education to the children who belong to the poor families. We engage volunteers for that purpose. We approach schools and colleges. What we feel that it has become easier for us to onboard the volunteers for the first time and take their work from them. But it becomes challenging for us to get them services second time and then later on. What they feel they express interest, some kinds of return from us, not from the financial perspective. It may be in the form of the capacity building, it may be in the form of the skill development. Can you suggest from your experience how to approach to those volunteers where we can just call them on a recurring basis?
Cool. I'll let Satish answer this. I think one thing very early in our journey, right? Because in our first year also, we called all our friends and family, please come and teach. 3 months, like we were only teaching back again, right? Everyone vanished. One thing that happened was we heard of this other organization also doing this called Make a Difference. And someone told us, ask all their volunteers to do 80% attendance or they ask them to leave. That blew my mind. I was like, they're asking the volunteer to leave. And I was like, whoa. So we said, if Matt's doing it, we'll also do it, right? So we also did it. And we ask people to leave very gently, nicely, caringly, lovingly, right? So, but we asked them to leave. But then the ones that stayed really valued it. They said, hey, I'm here and I'm serious. And so every time you raise the bar for volunteering, people actually raise to that level. You set a low bar and you accept it, what you tolerate will replicate. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's a perfect, politically correct way to say it. Join us later, right?
And the truth is, a lot of them will come back and join you also.
Yeah.
Like, I can give you an example. Like, the first set of volunteers we picked, first set of leaders we picked, there's one person, we let her go in the first month and said, hey, because she was also doing modeling, and that was a third place. So he said, this can't be a third place, right? This is not the right thing for you. Please leave. She came back 2 years later, right? And then she gave us 8 years after that, right? And so, people respect you when you do that, right? So I think that's partly the answer. But I think talking about the college students, right? Couple of things you should try and crack if you're working with colleges, if you have a direct relation with colleges, is certification. So they do 40 hours, then they get a certificate. So if you're able to get a college to agree to make it part of their course, that's the magic, right? And upskilling, I think you already mentioned. Integrate some learning for them also, right? So if they see, like, especially like India still is big on certificates, right? I cherish and nourish my certificates. So those two very practical strategies may work for you. Say you need to do 40 hours to be able to get a certificate, which is very highly valuable, and it's proven today. Like, we have volunteers who've gone to Oxford, Harvard, any Ivy League, and they'll tell you that, hey, I've been able to get a seat and I've been able to do well because I stayed with UNI for 2 years, 3 years. So create those testimonials, right? And that will really help you.
Yeah, just on the note of volunteers leaving, I just had a follow-up question. Something I've been wondering throughout the conference, like I had joked with my associate also, that if volunteers leave, is it a good idea to reach out to them and ask why they left, or is it intrusive? When is it intrusive? When is it crossing someone's private space? And then there sometimes, we tried that, and sometimes we get a positive result. Like, somebody may be confused, they might find themselves being lonely, so they come back. But other times they're just like borderline annoyed also. So, yeah.
See, I think we're in the business of people. That's something we need to understand, right? Now, do you know any brand which will not reach out to you and ask why you're leaving the business, whether it's a car company or whatever it is, right? They will shamelessly call and say, sir, why are you leaving? Like, do you have a problem? Then why are you hesitating, right? You're just trying to provide a good service, right? And they have given you their time, and it's your job to actually reach out and say, hey, why are you not happy with it? Right? So there's nothing. Absolutely, right? I would not even wait. I think that's a great, I would not even wait till they leave, right? Like, what are your feedback loops, right? We have number of case studies where a volunteer said, hey, in the feedback form, they said, hey, you guys suck and I want to quit. Right? Now, especially when you're dealing with 1,000, everybody is not going to have the same experience. But what is my reaction when that person says that? My manager will personally call that person and say, hey, would you like to stay? And I would like you to become a leader so that we can fix the problems together. I want this process to become together. And you're able to see the gap. So why not come in, become a leader? Right? And that's one way we pick leaders, when they give you a very critical feedback and say, this is how you suck. And you found a diamond in the dust. Go behind those people. And I'm telling you, they come back with so much ownership. Right? And they'll own the problem and they'll solve the problem.
Yeah. So, loved the idea when you said convert volunteers into your team as an employees. Do you have any examples where an excellent volunteer turned a horrible employee or probably just could not perform?
Quite a few.
That's one.
Quite a few.
Second, what are the checks and balances you ensure at part of briefing or part of interview when a volunteer is converting to a team member? If you
Yeah.
can just share some light.
Very good question. I think because a good volunteer does not equal to a good employee. Okay, and we made a lot of mistakes. Because it's like, okay, he's from the community, he's done amazingly, let's bring him in. And then 3 months later, it's not working out, right? That's a HR problem, right? Then we needed to not hire, but make our HR processes stronger and then say, okay, how do we, because it's actually our fault. Because I didn't do the proper screening to bring them in, like, hey, if you're coming in for this position, what are the skills required? Do you have those skills? Right? So we've become a lot more stringent in that area. How do we filter people out? And it becomes a challenge because somebody who's an excited volunteer, I said apply for the job, now I have to reject him. You know what's going to happen there? But again, what ma'am said, right? How do you do that gracefully? How do you make it a journey? And the first thing when I get in the interview, it says, hey, you are part of the family, you can have this job if you want. But the reason I'm here is to make sure that this is the right fit for you, right? And you're the right fit for the job, right? So make your HR processes stronger. And the other thing we do is we have a probation, 3 months. Let's try for 3 months, not working. Yeah, and sometimes you lose those volunteers. I think there's one there, but yeah.
Okay. How often do you incentivize your volunteers and what kind of...
Merch, right? Merchandise. I don't give my volunteers anything for free. Yeah, it's not enough that you're volunteering. If you want merch from me, then you need to do extra. Like you need to refer 5, like this, we're going to start our campaign. For you to get merch, you need to refer 5 friends.
Yeah,
Right?
so there's merch, there's social status, right? There's a lot of teacher of the month, volunteer of the month, yevo. Then the other incentive is you also get access to a lot of capacity building, a lot of trainings, a lot of sessions, all of that. Those are 3 ways. The other thing we incentivize is you get something for your students. So your students win something, right? Your center, etc., etc. You can win for your students if you do X or Y or Z.
Yeah, and if you're exceptional, you get to come on a podcast with
Yeah.
us. So that's the epitome. Yeah, so.